Her mother-in-law smashed her womb with bitter herbs. But what happened next will shock you. From heartbreak and betrayal to a miracle no one saw coming. This is the untold story of a woman who defied death itself to give birth to a king. Watch till the end. Anayo had never imagined her life would change at a simple village trade fair. She wore no jewels, no silk, only a plain wrap and a basket of herbs on her head. But her smile was soft, her spirit calm, and her presence unlike anyone Prince Zuberi had ever seen. The prince, dressed in gold and surrounded by guards, should have passed her by, but he stopped. Right there in the middle of the crowd, he looked at her like she was the only person that existed. The people whispered. Who was she? Just a girl from Nguma. No royal blood, no name. But Zuberi didn't care. He returned the next day, then the next. Soon, he visited Nguma so often that his advisors began to talk. The council warned him. A prince cannot marry a common girl, they said. It will shame the throne. But Zuberi had made his choice. He loved Anayo, not for her beauty, though she was beautiful, but for her heart, her kindness, and her strength. Only one moon after meeting her, he brought her to the palace. The people watched in shock. Never in Ojerika's history had a prince chosen a bride outside nobility. The palace maids whispered. The elders frowned. But Zuberi didn't blink. He stood tall beside her, holding her hand as she entered the great marble gates. The wedding was small, but full of meaning. The drums played. Anayo's eyes sparkled with tears of joy. She couldn't believe it. A simple girl, now the prince's wife. She walked the palace halls in awe, still smelling of lemongrass and soap from Nguma. But not everyone celebrated her joy. Watching from her high chamber, Queen Mother Abansa looked down with eyes like cold stone. She wore a tight smile, but her heart boiled with anger. Abansa had spent her whole life guarding the royal bloodline. She had raised Zuberi to marry the daughter of the House of Emina, a powerful alliance. But now he had brought in a nobody, a girl with no past, no power, no purpose in the kingdom. She will ruin everything, Abansa whispered to herself. To the people, Abansa smiled. She offered Anayo gifts, whispered sweet things in her ear. But inside, she was boiling. She couldn't show her anger, not yet, so she waited, quietly, watching. She studied Anayo's movements, noticed every mistake, every stutter. Every second she walked through the palace like a guest, not a queen. And in her heart, she made a promise, one so bitter it could rot the soil. She may have entered this palace with a smile, but she will leave with tears. And just like that, the battle began, a quiet war, one that Anayo didn't see coming, one that would test love, destroy peace, and change Ojerika forever. Zuberi had always respected his mother. Queen Mother Abansa ruled the palace with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. Her word was law. Her silence was warning. The entire kingdom of Ojerika knew. No bride entered the royal gates without her approval. But Zuberi had broken that rule. He had chosen Anayo, and nothing Abansa said could change his mind. He had tasted power, but now he chose love. Inside the palace, Zuberi treated Anayo like she was gold. He shielded her from whispers, taught her royal customs, and made sure she never felt like an outsider. Every night he sat by her, held her hand, and whispered, "You belong here." And Anayo, though nervous, smiled through it all. Her heart was full, and her eyes lit up with hope. But the Queen Mother, watching from behind her carved ivory doors, saw something else. To the court, Abansa played the role of a calm, supportive mother. She smiled during dinners. She touched Anayo's shoulder and asked if she needed help. But behind those polite gestures was something dark, a storm waiting to break. Her hatred burned like fire wrapped in silk. She saw Anayo's soft steps, her gentle speech, and thought, this girl will never be queen. One evening, while brushing her thick silver hair, Abansa leaned toward her loyal maid, Tamra, and whispered, "She will never carry my grandson." Her voice was soft, but cold, like steel. Tamra shivered. She had served Abansa for years and knew what that tone meant. It wasn't just a wish, it was a plan. Zuberi had no idea. He believed his mother was adjusting. He thought time would change her heart, but he didn't see the look she gave when Anayo walked into a room. He didn't hear the late-night meetings. He didn't know the bitter herbs being boiled in secret behind the palace kitchen. He was in love, too deeply to notice the danger circling his wife. Every time Anayo fell sick, he thought it was palace stress. When she complained of sharp stomach pains, he brought palace healers, but they found nothing. And Abansa, ever smiling, sat at her side and said, It must be the change. You'll get used to palace life. But in truth, Ebanza had begun her silent war, not with swords, but with tricks, potions, and whispers. She invited secret herbalists from distant lands, paid servants to sprinkle bitter leaves into Anayo's tea. She acted kind in the day, but turned wicked in the shadows. Her goal wasn't to kill Anayo. No, that would bring shame. She simply wanted to make sure the girl never became a mother, never bore the next heir. Because to Ebanza, Anayo wasn't just a girl from the hills. She was a threat, a stain on her perfect royal plan. And in her world, threats had to be erased. Slowly, silently, without a trace. 3 weeks after the wedding, when the palace seemed to have settled into silence, Queen Mother Ebanza made her move. She sent a message to Anayo, inviting her for a private evening talk in the royal garden. Anayo, still eager to win her mother-in-law's love, dressed in her finest and arrived with a hopeful heart. Ebanza greeted her with a soft smile and open arms. "Come, my daughter," she said, her voice like honey hiding thorns. They sat beneath the moonlight, surrounded by flowers that smelled sweet but couldn't mask the bitterness in Ebanza's heart. A maid brought a clay cup, steam rising from the dark liquid inside. "This," Ebanza said gently, "is a royal fertility brew. All queens take it to prepare the womb for royal blood." Anayo hesitated. The smell was strong, sharp and unfamiliar, but she trusted Ebanza, or at least wanted to. So, with both hands, she drank. At first, she felt nothing, just warmth sliding down her throat. Ebanza smiled, watching closely, then waved her off with a kiss on the cheek. "Rest well, my daughter. A child will come soon." But later that night, the pain began. Deep, twisting pain in her belly that left her gasping for air. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She cried for help. Her screams echoed through the halls, waking Zuberi from sleep. He rushed into the chamber and found her curled on the floor, blood soaking the sheets, her eyes wide with fear. He lifted her into his arms, shouting for the royal healer. The healer came, old and wise, and examined her with a grim face. Minutes passed like hours. Then came the words no husband wants to hear. "Her womb, it's injured, deeply. She may never carry a child again." Zuberi's world spun. He held Anayo's trembling hand, brushing the hair from her face. "You'll be fine," he whispered, but her eyes were filled with tears and terror. She didn't understand what had happened. Just hours ago, she was dreaming of a family. Now, it was gone, taken. In her chambers, Ebanza sat calmly, sipping her tea. She already knew the result. The drink she gave Anayo wasn't for fertility. It was poison, laced with dara root, a rare plant known only to a few. In ancient villages, women used it to end pregnancies, to curse wombs. It was banned in most lands, but Ebanza had hidden stores of it, passed down in silence. She had crushed it with her own hands, mixed it with herbs, and served it with a smile. "She will stay here," Ebanza whispered to herself, "but she will never become a mother, never pass on the crown." Her plan had begun. She didn't need to throw Anayo out. She only needed to make sure the girl never gave the kingdom an heir. And with 1 cup of bitter tea, she had done just that, and no one could prove a thing. Zuberi sat by Anayo's side for days, holding her hand, watching her sleep through pain and silence. His heart broke every time he saw her wince or wake up with tears. The royal healer had confirmed it. Her womb was damaged beyond repair. She would never have children. But even in that dark moment, Zuberi's love for her didn't change. He wiped her tears, kissed her forehead, and promised, "You are still my queen. You always will be." But outside that room, Queen Mother Ebanza celebrated in silence. Her plan had worked. The herbs had done their damage. Anayo was now just a flower that would never bloom. In her eyes, a useless branch on the royal tree. But Ebanza wasn't satisfied. Her aim wasn't just to stop a child. She wanted Anayo gone, erased from the palace, from the bloodline, from memory. She started to whisper, first to the maids, then to the kitchen staff. "It's such a shame," she would say, shaking her head. "The girl must be cursed. Look how her womb failed after only 3 weeks." The words spread like wildfire. Soon, the palace halls buzzed with gossip. "The gods have rejected her," one elder muttered. "Zuberi needs a wife who can carry royal blood," another insisted. Ebanza fed the flames, softly, cleverly. At council meetings, she sighed and said, "I love Anayo like a daughter, but the kingdom must grow. We need an heir." She never ordered anything directly. She let the pressure rise on its own. The elders began to press. Nobles wrote letters. The people of Ojerika started whispering behind closed doors. A prince with no heir, a queen with no child. It was unacceptable. Zuberi tried to hold them back. He defended Anayo with all the power he had. "She is still my wife," he declared. "I will not cast her out because of pain she did not choose." But even a prince's voice can grow tired. Day after day, night after night, he was pulled into meetings, reminded of his duty, pushed with subtle threats. "The kingdom needs legacy," they said. "Do not let love cloud your judgment." Finally, Zuberi gave in, not because he stopped loving Anayo, but because he was surrounded by voices that drowned his heart. The decision was made quietly, without a royal announcement. They called it a period of rest for the queen, a time for healing, but everyone knew what it truly meant. Anayo was to be sent away, not to a healing retreat, but into exile. On the morning she left, she didn't cry. She had no more tears. Her heart was already broken, and now they were sending her away with it. Zuberi stood at the gates, unable to speak. He placed a soft kiss on her hand and whispered, "Forgive me." And as the gates of Ojerika closed behind her, Queen Mother Abanza stood on the balcony above, smiling coldly. Her enemy was gone, or so she thought. The palace slept that night under a silent sky, but Prince Zuberi did not. His heart pounded with each step as he led the cart quietly through the secret eastern gate. Anayo sat inside, wrapped in old cloth, disguised as a merchant's helper. She didn't speak. Her eyes were blank, her soul still bleeding. The exile had been ordered, but Zuberi refused to let her be thrown to shame. He had one last choice, to protect her from afar. Their destination was Maruka village, a hidden place beyond the desert plains. Far from Ojerika, it was a small, quiet land where no royal eyes could reach. There lived Ijele, the old nursemaid who once raised Zuberi like a son, trusted, loyal, the only one he could depend on now. By dawn, they reached the edge of Maruka. Zuberi stepped down, helped Anayo from the cart, and walked her to a tiny mud house with a thatched roof and a glowing lantern. Ijele stood at the doorway, her silver hair covered in a scarf, her eyes sharp as ever. She said nothing at first, just opened her arms and held Anayo like a mother would. Zuberi knelt before her. "Take care of her," he whispered. "She is all I have, and I have nothing left." Ijele nodded, understanding everything without asking. Zuberi didn't wait long. He left before the sun could rise, vanishing into the early mist. He had to return to Ojerika before his absence was noticed, before Abanza suspected anything. Days passed. Anayo sat in silence. She barely ate. She cried when no one watched. Her womb was broken, her husband gone, her future stolen. Maruka was peaceful, but her heart knew only storm. Ijele tried everything, herbs, food, stories, but Anayo had fallen too deep into sorrow. One night, the rain poured. The wind howled through the trees. Anayo clutched her stomach, feeling pain again. She thought it was just her body remembering the poison, but the pain didn't stop. It grew, shifted. Warmth moved through her like a flame, then cooled like spring water. The next morning, she awoke different. Her hands rested on her belly. It didn't feel empty. Weeks passed, then months. The pain faded, but something else grew. Her body changed. Her energy returned. She began craving strange foods. Her heartbeat pulsed faster. And then, one early morning, Ijele looked at her with wide eyes. "Child, you are with child." Anayo froze. "But the herbs," the healer said. Ijele smiled, tears in her eyes. "The healer saw wounds, yes, but life is stronger than death, and the gods have their own plans." Anayo began to cry, not from sorrow this time, but from shock and hope. Her womb, once declared broken, was blooming with life, something no one believed possible. Not even the Queen Mother could stop this miracle. 3 moons passed slowly in Maruka village. Each day, Anayo rose with a heaviness in her body and questions in her heart. Her mornings began with nausea, her nights with strange dreams. At first, she thought it was the aftermath of the herbs, the cruel ones Abanza had given her. She remembered the blood, the pain, the healer's voice saying her womb was ruined forever. But this felt different. Her appetite returned, but not the same. She craved peppery beans and sweet yam porridge at odd hours. Her skin glowed faintly, her cheeks fuller. Ijele watched her closely, silently noting every change. One day, while preparing herbs, Ijele paused and said softly, "Anayo, are you?" Anayo looked down at her belly. It was no longer flat. It curved gently, like a whisper of life beneath her skin. "I don't know." she whispered back, eyes wide. It's not possible. But nature doesn't ask permission. It moves with power. Within another moon, Anayo's belly rounded fully. Her steps slowed. Her hands always cradled her stomach, even in sleep. She tried to deny it, afraid it was all in her mind, but her body had already accepted the truth. Ijele finally said it aloud. You're carrying life. Anayo's eyes filled with tears, but the royal healer said my womb was gone. Ijele shook her head. Only the gods can speak of life and death, not men, not even healers. Word spread through Maruka. The villagers, kind and curious, began visiting her small home. They brought fruits, fabrics, even names for the unborn child. One elder woman called the child Anunzua, meaning child of divine mercy. The name stuck. It spread like fire across the village. Some called it a miracle. Others whispered that Anayo was touched by the ancestors. Many believed the child would carry greatness. But Anayo kept silent. She had no answers. Only the quiet joy that grew stronger each day. A joy mixed with fear. What would Zuberi think? What would happen if Abanza found out? She prayed silently. Every night, her hands pressed on her belly, her eyes looking to the stars. She didn't understand how it had happened, but she knew one thing deeply. This child was not ordinary. This child had survived poison, had bloomed inside a womb that was declared dead. This child had purpose. And in her heart, Anayo vowed, no matter what happens, I will protect this life with mine. She still felt the weight of exile, the sting of betrayal, but this new life was a spark of hope in the ashes, something beyond pain, beyond science, beyond palace curses, a quiet voice growing louder inside her, promising change. And in that little mud house in Maruka, far from the kingdom that cast her out, Anayo felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt chosen. The sky turned red on the night Anayo went into labor. The blood moon hung heavy over Maruka, and thunder rumbled like drums from the heavens. The winds howled. Animals cried. It was as if nature itself knew something powerful was about to happen. Inside the small hut, Anayo gripped Ijele's hand, sweat pouring down her face. Her screams tore through the silence of the village. Villagers lit fires outside her home. They prayed, waited, listened. Time moved slowly. Hours passed, and her cries only grew louder, deeper. Ijele worked fiercely, whispering to the spirits, urging Anayo to push, to breathe, to fight. Lightning cracked the sky again and again, each flash revealing the fear in Anayo's eyes and the fierce strength behind it. Then, just as the first light of dawn touched the hills, it happened. A loud cry, not Anayo's, a baby's. The storm calmed. Inside, Anayo collapsed back, tears mixing with sweat, her body trembling. In her arms lay a baby boy, pink-skinned, wide-eyed, and wrapped in warmth. But what made everyone gasp wasn't just the strength of his cry or the power in his tiny fists. It was the mark on his chest, faint but clear, shaped like the royal crest of Ojerika, a rising sun between twin mountains. Ijele dropped her herbs and whispered, this child is born to rule. Anayo stared at her son, breathless. She hadn't imagined this moment. She hadn't dared to, but here he was, real, whole, a miracle in her arms. She touched the mark gently, then kissed his forehead. I will call you Jafari, she whispered. It means, he who brings light to ruins. The villagers gathered outside, drawn by the energy. When Ijele stepped out and announced the birth, the people cheered. They didn't know the whole truth, but they felt something shift in the air. This wasn't an ordinary birth. It was destiny unfolding. From that moment, Jafari became the heart of Maruka. Strangers brought him gifts, tiny sandals, beads, wooden carvings. Elders blessed him. Even animals seemed drawn to him. And Anayo, she watched him every day, her heart healing slowly. The pain Abanza caused, the shame, the betrayal, it didn't vanish. But holding Jafari made it all bearable, because he was more than her son. He was proof that lies could not destroy truth, that even crushed roots could bloom again. And though she didn't say it aloud, she knew deep down, Jafari would return to Ojerika one day, not as a beggar, not as a secret, but as a king, born from exile, forged by pain, destined by the stars. The blood moon had brought him into the world, not to be hidden, but to shine. Years rolled by, like the wind through the Maruka hills, and with each season, Jafari grew into something greater than anyone expected. By the age of 7, he was already known throughout the village, not just for his sharp mind, but for the way he carried himself. He played strategy games with the elders and won. He asked deep questions that made grown men pause. There was something about him, a fire behind his eyes, an old soul in a young body. At 10, he tamed a wild stallion that even hunters feared. The beast bowed its head before Jafari like it recognized its master. People started whispering, not just about his strength or wisdom, but about his resemblance to someone they once saw in the capital, someone royal. One afternoon, a merchant arrived in Maruka, dusty from the road, carrying fabrics and stories from far-off places. He watched Jafari from a distance, the boy's stance, his voice, his eyes. Then, under his breath, the merchant muttered to Ijela, "He looks just like Prince Zuberi did when he was young." That single sentence became a spark. The merchant didn't know he had lit a fire, but the next village he stopped in, he told the same story, and then another, until word reached the edges of Ojerika. Whispers grew into talk grew into rumors, and finally, it reached Queen Mother Ebanza. She froze. Her blood ran cold. A boy, in Maruka, born of Anayo, alive. She remembered the bitter herbs, the screams, the healer's words. Her womb is shattered. It had been a perfect plan, or so she thought. But now this rumor threatened everything. Her power, her pride, the throne she was saving for a hand-picked puppet prince. Number. She wouldn't allow it. That night, she summoned her most loyal guards, men who didn't ask questions, only followed orders. "There is a child in Maruka," she said coldly, pacing. "A boy with a royal mark. They say he was born under the blood moon. They say he bears my son's face. I want him gone." "Do you want him brought here?" one guard asked. She turned, eyes burning. "No," she hissed. "Bring me his head." Silence fell across the room. The order was clear, ruthless, final. Outside the palace walls, Ojerika still danced and celebrated the queen's rule. But deep inside, fear had begun to stir. The past was no longer buried. A secret once thought dead was now alive, breathing, growing. And miles away in Maruka, Jafari sat by the fire, unaware of the storm coming his way. He held a wooden lion he had carved himself, unaware that his face was now a threat to a kingdom, unaware that his destiny and his enemies were closing in. By the time Queen Abanza's assassins reached Maruka, they found nothing but quiet winds and ashes of a fire. Jafari, now 15, had already left. With him stood a small but fierce band of warriors, hunters, farmers, and outcasts who had seen his light and followed it. Their loyalty was not bought with gold, but earned with respect. They called him Odogwu, the born leader. Beside Jafari rode Anayo, her face hidden behind a fine red veil. Her posture was proud, her spirit unbroken. The road to Ojerika was long and dangerous, but Jafari never looked back. Every step was a step toward truth, toward justice. When they reached the golden gates of the royal city, guards rushed to block their way, until they saw the birthmark on the boy's chest, in the shape of Ojerika's crest, right above his heart. Murmurs spread through the city like wildfire. Word reached the palace. Queen Abanza ordered the gates closed, but the people pushed them open. Curiosity and unrest filled the streets. No one had ever dared to return from exile like this, and no one had ever claimed royal blood with such boldness. In the courtyard of the palace under the high sun, Jafari stepped forward. He stood tall, stripped off his shirt, and let the light hit the mark on his chest. The council of elders gasped in unison. Even the birds seemed to pause. Then came Zuberi, older now, worn by regret and silence. He pushed through the crowd, his eyes locked on the boy. He stopped in front of Jafari, his lips trembling. He saw the eyes, his own eyes. He saw the stance, his own stance. He didn't speak. He simply fell to his knees. "This is my son," he whispered, voice cracked with emotion. The true heir of Ojerika. Gasps, shouts, confusion, joy, and then a scream. Queen Abanza shoved her way forward, face red with rage, eyes wild. "Lies! Lies!" she roared. "This is not possible. She was cursed. Her womb was ruined." Jafari stood firm. Then Anayo stepped forward. She removed her veil slowly. The entire courtyard fell silent. There she stood, beautiful, older, wiser, but still standing, still alive. "I survived," she said, voice steady, eyes locked on Abanza. "I survived your herbs, your lies, your hate, and from my brokenness I gave birth to a king." Abanza's lips trembled. She took a step back, The people looked at Anayo, then at Jafari. The truth had arrived, not with swords, but with scars, strength, and the light of something bigger than revenge. Ojerika would never be the same again. The day Queen Mother Ibanza fell was a day the kingdom of Ojerika would never forget. The palace buzzed with shock and relief as guards took her away, stripping her of every title and power she had clung to for so long. The whispers of her cruelty, her plots, and her bitterness turned into loud chants calling for justice. The people's voices rose as one, shouting Anayo's name, the woman who had suffered but never broken. Zuberi, the prince who had once defied the council and his own mother, now stepped down from his position. He stood humbly before the crowd, his eyes filled with regret and hope. He knew the future belonged not to him, but to the son born of true love and resilience. The crown was ready, gleaming in the sun, waiting for the rightful heir. Jafari, now a young man of courage and wisdom beyond his years, stepped forward. But before the elders could place the crown upon his head, Jafari did something unexpected. He took his mother Anayo's hand and lifted it high for all to see. The crowd fell silent, watching this son honor the woman who had endured more than anyone else. "There is no king without the woman who birthed one," Jafari said clearly, his voice strong and proud. The weight of those words filled the courtyard with awe. Slowly the elders crowned Anayo Queen Mother of Ojerika, a title that carried respect and honor. She was no longer just the mother of the king, but the symbol of hope, strength, and truth. Her journey from a broken woman betrayed by bitter herbs to the mother of a king was a story that would be told for generations. Anayo's eyes shone with tears, but they were tears of victory and healing. She looked at her son, the young king who had risen from exile and shadows to claim his rightful place. Together, they promised a new era for Ojerika, one where love and justice would rule, not fear and cruelty. And what became of Ibanza? Years later, the once powerful Queen Mother was seen wandering near the city gates, blind and forgotten. Her eyes, once sharp with hatred, now held only sorrow. People whispered she begged for mercy, her mouth bitter as the herbs she had once used to destroy Anayo's womb. The fall of Ibanza was a reminder that no evil can bury destiny. What is meant to rise will rise, even from broken places. The kingdom of Ojerika had learned this truth, that true power belongs not to those who scheme in shadows, but to those who survive and shine in the light. If you ever feel broken, betrayed, or pushed to the edge by those who should have loved you, remember Anayo's story. She was shattered by cruelty, forced into silence and exile, yet from her pain rose a king, a symbol of hope, strength, and justice. Life may try to break you with bitter herbs of betrayal, but inside you lies the power to rise, to heal, and to reclaim your destiny. Never let anyone tell you that your dreams are impossible or that you are less because of what you've endured. Like Anayo, your darkest moments can be the beginning of your greatest triumph. Hold on to hope, believe in yourself, and never give up, even when the world turns its back on you. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that no evil can stop what is meant to rise, then please show some love. Like this video, to spread the message of courage. Share it with someone who needs to hear that strength can come from the hardest battle. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories that inspire and uplift. Thank you for watching and being part of this journey. Together, we will rise from every broken place and shine brighter than ever before. Your support means the world. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and keep believing in the magic of your own story.